Hello and welcome back. Let's talk business. So, very exciting stuff with derivatives today. I believe it is our last episode of derivatives. Then we're going to get into real calculus. But let's talk business first. First thing we're going to talk about, optimization. So let's say we have a function, any type of function. Well, we've seen this function before, that's for sure. We can say that this function has a maximum and a minimum. And we call these global maximums and minimums along the function. And so what we can do for these, for business applications, is if we want to maximize or minimize something, we can find these 2 points using first and second derivatives. So our first derivative will be 0 at these points, and our second derivative will either be positive or negative, sometimes 0, which in that case doesn't really help, but we'll just talk about positive or negative. At this point, you can see it's negative, it's concaving down. That means it's an absolute maximum. Here it's concaving up, opposite, absolute minimum. So yeah. That's basically optimization. We'll do a little example problem. We also have, I forgot to mention, local maximum and minimum. That's when you have a function and we have just a certain area that we want to analyze. This would be the local minimum because this function could keep going and there could be a minimum right here. Also, what should be noted for local maximum and minimum is that we will evaluate these points as well, because that right there would be a local maximum. Anyways, pretty easy definitions. Nothing we haven't seen before. I'm sure we've thought this in our heads before while looking at functions. So let's get into an example. The example says that we have a house on the side, and we want to build a fence around it, making a rectangle or a square. We're not sure yet, but some type of rectangle. We want to maximize the area in here, but we only have 30 meters of fence to enclose this area. So how are we going to do this? Well, let's make some variables. We can call this x, which would make this x since it's a rectangle, and we'll call this y. Variables we've seen before, very simple. Well, our area is just going to be x times y, but 2x plus y has to equal 30. So that's two things we were told by our word problem. So let's substitute to try to get area in terms of one variable because we want to maximize our area. Well, this can be represented in terms of y. Y equals 30 minus 2x. And if we plug y into this y, we get area equals x times 30 minus 2x. And what's that? That's just 30x minus 2x squared. This is going to be a quadratic that goes like this. Let's find the top of it. How do we do that? We find the prime, as I just talked about. 30x minus 2x squared. Prime is just 30 minus 4x. Let's set that equal to 0 because we want to find the critical point. 4x equals 30. 30. X equals 7.5. And so if this was a more complicated function, we would have to find whether it was a absolute minimum, absolute maximum, but this is only going to have 1 point, and we know it's going to be an absolute maximum because it's just a quadratic that goes like this. So the top has to be a maximum. Okay, that's pretty simple. We could find our y by plugging it in to the other to the perimeter equation, it's just going to be 15 because 7.5 plus 15 plus 7.5 is 30. Let's talk about elasticity and demand. So elasticity as a function of price is equal to the prime of your demand function as a function of price times your price over your original demand function. So what does this mean? Let's say we have a function. Price goes along, demand goes along. The company gives us a little area to analyze. Usually demand is going to go down as price increases. That's just regular economics. So, how can we tell if, as we increase this price, is the demand going to drastically increase or decrease? Well, if our elasticity function, the absolute value of it at that price P is greater than 1, then the demand at price P is considered elastic or dependent on price. If it's less than 1, if the absolute value is less than 1, it's considered inelastic, not dependent on price, which means we can increase it without having a ton of people not come to our store anymore. For example, something like gas. As gas prices go up, as we've seen recently, people still keep buying gas. Versus things like jewelry, if you went to go buy jewelry and it was $1 million for a necklace, you're not going to buy a necklace, obviously, because you don't need jewelry. So, let's do a calculation. Let's say we have a demand function, d of p equals 4,000 minus 600p. Well, d per p is just negative 600, so our e of p is negative 600 times p over 4,000 minus 600p. Right? D prime of p, d of p, p. So let's figure out, at a price of 6, is it elastic or inelastic? Well, e of 6 is negative 600 times 6 over 4,000 minus 600 times 6. What this is going to give us is 3,600 over negative 400. And the absolute value of that is definitely over 1. So this demand function, or the demand at a price of 6, is elastic. It is dependent on price, so we shouldn't increase the price if we don't have to. And we should keep the price as low as possible while still keeping profits. Anyways, that's business applications for you. I guess I should also mention, if E of P is 0, then we get a perfectly inelastic demand. So that would be something like this, where your demand literally does not change at all. Really wouldn't really happen unless it's like, say if you owned a bridge, people are going to have to use the bridge to get to work every day. People aren't just going to quit their jobs. But yeah, that's business for you. See you in the next video where we talk about a lot of fun stuff with antiderivatives, and we're almost done with Calc 1. See you in it.